Today we're talking specifically about semiconductors and everything that's happening between China, the United States, and ultimately what it means for the semiconductor market. Because this has been the strongest area of the stock market for now 2 years in all actuality. We look at AMD pushing into new highs, AVGO, ASML, NVIDIA, all the AVGO, they're all going crazy. So we need to understand, is this sustainable? Is a bubble about to pop? And where do we go from here? Now, I also want to mention you do have earnings coming to effect this week. Again, not the big semiconductor names, but a few coming out. We have Texas Instruments, Intel being your two decent sized semiconductors, and it will continue to heat up over the rest of the month and into the beginning of November. So there is a lot that we have to unpack and what we're going to be doing there overall. Now, there is one area in the semiconductor space that does kind of spook me, and we'll go more into that as well. Let's get into it. Now, what I will say, the first thing is we're going to go over NVIDIA, and I think it's important that we understand the charts. Now, I want to say that I don't believe technicals are more important than fundamentals, because the reality is tomorrow or Monday we open up and China says we're reopening the market for, NVIDIA and AMD and these other companies, right? I think NVIDIA would surge, right? It's just going to be so much more revenue, so much more money. So fundamentals trump technicals every day of the week. I think technicals, though, can give you an idea of when things can get more aggressive versus more, conservative as far as trending and sitting in a range, things along those lines, right? Because you're not always going to have crazy fundamental news on the stock market or a stock in general. Very important to have that realization and understanding and self-awareness, right? So when we're not having crazy news, again, it's important to know these levels. So NVIDIA right now, the breakout point to where buyers get aggressive continues to be right here, 184. We've marked this like a million times, and if you struggle underneath that, now you can see we pushed above that back here. I'll go into that here in a second, but you can see right now we're sitting below that as we speak, basically since the 14th of October. Then you can see when we broke above this, you held above it for about a week and a half, and then ultimately the news kind of brought you back down from Trump last Friday before this, whatever it may be, right? So important to know that what happened there and kind of what drove that. Now, where are we at? Where are we going? Now, I think NVIDIA, and I believe NVIDIA is the top dog. So when NVIDIA starts to run, usually everything looks good. That being said, we've seen other names get a little bit of love when NVIDIA kind of isn't. So, AVGO broke into highs over here, and we're going to go over something that's the common denominator with some of these moves. AMD, sitting near all-time high, sitting above your all-time high right there. This is your previous one from 2024 in March right there, 227, sitting above it as we speak. Another name out there is ASML, pretty strong name. Let's go to the weekly chart so we can just see this real quick. So I want everyone to have a grasp of where we're at, right? ASML on the weekly looks really good, like it wants to break out, getting the price discovery, but close to all-time highs. LRCX, another big name, already in all-time highs. Intel's bouncing back, doing really well. I can go down a laundry list of names, but Micron, another name out there, right? Now, the common denominator with most of these names is one simple thing. Go to your browser, type in AI deals, type in semiconductor too if you need to. I just typed in open AI deals. That's it. That's all I did. You see OpenAI Nvidia, Walmart deal, AMD, we had AVGO. There was so many came out, right? There was so Stargate, Oracle, Nvidia, AMD. It was just nonstop. The past 2 weeks, Broadcom, AVGO. The past 2 weeks, 3 weeks has been nothing but AI deals. You had ARM announced a deal, I think, this past week as well. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily terrible. I'm not saying this is a crash. I'm not saying this is a bubble. But when everything is directly connected to one specific circumstance to get so things like rising or pumping, whatever it may be, that's a concern. And this is another visual that I shared on Twitter. And again, I think Twitter is just a place where I can just kind of like voice my thoughts, right? Maybe more speculative sometimes on Twitter. I try to be pretty direct here and have facts to back it up. I can kind of just speak whatever's on my mind on Twitter. So I do recommend following if you want to see anything and everything that we're looking at there. But this is like the problem. And it's funny because I posted this, I think, on the 8th. So that's 10 days ago. That was before some of these deals were even announced. And it's funny, like you don't even see AVGO on this, but like it is on this now because they had a deal with OpenAI. And so you're seeing like all these companies just getting major deals with either NVIDIA or OpenAI. And NVIDIA, I don't think NVIDIA is a bubble. I genuinely don't believe that is the case at all. I think it's very strong. I think it's a good looking name. I think NVIDIA makes a lot of money, and they're going to keep making a lot of money. The concern is when you start getting extremely speculative on these moves up, right? So go look at AMD. I think AMD is a great example. You know, AMD was moving really solid. It was at 165. It was already looking pretty bullish, right? Breaking back up. But, you know, you went from 165 to basically 240 in a day. Like that's really what happened. You gapped up, you went to 240. So you moved up $80. You basically went up 45% on the stock in one session. And I don't think an OpenAI deal constitutes a 50% move on the stock, right? Especially after you haven't brought in any revenue yet. Now, will they bring in revenue? Yes, they're going to bring in revenue through OpenAI. I have no doubt about it. However, you're just moving up with these ideas, and that's what's really taking place with semiconductors in the short term right now. I would be shocked if we don't see some sort of dip on semiconductors over the next few months. Again, that might not happen right now, considering where the Nasdaq is at. If we go look at QQQ, you know, despite everything going on with Donald Trump, and again, this is the weekly chart. You know, the China tariffs, everything happening there. You know, the QQQ is still churning to the upside, right? Government shutdown, all that. Like, you're still holding up very well. Now, if this does pull back at all, semis are going to get hit. They're going to, and I think will provide a very big buying opportunity, because right now I don't think you're getting buying opportunities on semis. If I'm being totally honest, it's just you're not getting value. You're not buying. Okay, well, I'm getting this at a good deal. No, you're buying like, okay, well, I'm scared if I don't buy that it's going to go up more and I'm going to lose out. And that's a kind of a recipe for disaster traditionally. So it's important to think about. Now, where I think the lines could get drawn of this is kind of like a coin flip, because what's happening with China and what's happening with the rare earth materials could cause some shockwaves down into semis and the development and what's the cost of producing these. So it's really important to understand that. You know, I pulled up a few visuals for this graph right here. But this was in 2024. Now, the dynamics of this graph are changing. I want to make that really clear. They are changing, and it's China's dominating less and less every year. Okay, I want to highlight that. You can see, you know, go back to 2010 when it came to rare earth materials, it was all China. I mean, look at this. That's literally all China back here in 2010. You know, gradually the United States is light blue. You know, they weren't doing very much, but we've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see Trump is putting a lot more emphasis on that, right? I think that is important. But in the time being, if we do go through with this trade war with China and we have to put tariffs on them and they, you know, don't want to give us any of the product, it's going to cause issues for companies like NVIDIA, AVGO, TSM. TSM was another big name I didn't go over, but again, it's at all-time highs. It's breaking out. You know, it's all those names are going to, you know, costs are going to go up. Margins are going to reduce. You have to anticipate if the cost of products go up. That's the concern here. So this does put like a little bit of a roadblock potentially in your path, right? Now, again, I do think this is a roadblock, but it's worth mentioning that semiconductors are it's a runaway train. It's a monster. It's going full speed. It's going to take a lot to get these things derailed or slow down. So it's really important to think about. But this, I think I haven't made enough emphasis on this on the channel, that this is directly tied straight to semis and could cause some hiccups. So if we start to see a dip, in my opinion, on NVIDIA or AVGO, TSM, all those names, especially I want to highlight the companies that have made deals with the United States, those are going to be the companies you're going to want to bet on. I'm telling you right now. So again, AMD, NVIDIA, AVGO, TSM, those are some of your biggest names. Intel recently gave equity, I guess, basically the United States. You know, ARM, these other companies. ARM doesn't have a deal with the United States, but again, they're working with a lot of these other companies as well. Those are the ones that I would be focused on the most. Again, you need to understand the other logical point of view. And again, I go over technicals a lot. But a lot of this too, when you are going into investing or making bigger plays, and I always recommend you do your own research. You know, I go over some of this stuff, but again, this is me just relaying thoughts and things that I'm thinking about and what I'm going to do with my money. You guys should always go do your own research, right? At the end of the day, if, you know, me and you, let's say you're watching this video and I'm watching this video and I put $20,000 into AMD and you put $10,000 in AMD. Now, let's say AMD goes down 50% and I lose 10,000, you lose and not empathetic or anything like that, but I care about my investments. Like, that's just the truth. And like, I don't care what anyone says here on YouTube, but if you go and lose money, little Timmy, who's you're subscribed to, is gonna be like, oh man, that sucks, Jeff, but you'll get him next time, brother. Like, they don't really care about your investments, right? They care if they've lost money, they really care. Like, I'm gonna tell you, if I lose money, I really care. So I just try to be transparent with everything I'm thinking about, the concerns, the worries, everything like that. So it's really important that you guys are also relevant and thinking logically about, like, that is on you guys. You've got to be doing your own research. These are just tools and free things to help you. But again, what I'm thinking, dude, my son is going ballistic. I'm sorry if you can hear him. He's going crazy. Shout out Texas Tech. They're a good game right now. But that's what's happening right now. And so I just want people to understand and think about that. Sometimes I might seem super bullish. Sometimes I might seem super bearish. But at the end of the day, hopefully you guys know that that's how you kind of think about this market. So that's what I'm thinking about here. Now, going back into levels of where I'm looking to, get aggressive, buy, etc. Now, in the short term, I'm going to go over NVIDIA. I'll just run through some of these semiconductors for you guys. So let's jump into it. So in the short term for NVIDIA, it's really simple. Above 184, I think you really could start breaking back into the gap fill 187 and push back into highs. And worth mentioning, hitting 205 will hit you at about roughly $5 trillion in a market cap. So I think that's a big target to have. That'll be a big day for NVIDIA. But in the short term, if you break below 179, you're looking for 176. And then from there, you really don't have anything all the way down to 170, 168. And this is why I'm just being cautious here, is because you have to realize, like, we were just down here. And fundamentally, not too much has really changed with NVIDIA. They announced, again, an OpenAI deal on something else, but that's really where we're at right now. So worth mentioning, what I'd be watching, what I'd be tracking. AVGO, you just had a monster move here from your last earnings, and then right here from your move at 325 with your gap up. Well, guess what happened? They announced a deal with OpenAI. So again, if AVGO loses 344.5, looking for 332 down to your 50 MA, 328, you lose the 50 MA, I'm looking down for 317 and then down to 302. Take a picture if you need to see. And then above 356, I'm really looking for all-time highs, so you look really strong there as well. Another big name, I'm going for the big names. I'm not getting super aggressive with the cheaper names right now. I'll tell you that right now. I'll throw in the cheaper names if you guys want to do your own research, but again, this is what I'm looking at. TSM, again, this has been a really impressive chart, but it's definitely slowing down, especially on Friday. Again, TSM likely to come down to 286, big level there, then down into 280, 276, and then ultimately 262 is where I'd be watching this as well. You can actually see that you had a nice consolidation here. So there's going to be support there. And then your next level from that is all the way down at 250. So what I'd be watching, again, sometimes people watch like, Tyler, do you really think we're going to get that big of a dip? I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers for you guys. I'm not going to pretend like I know the future, what's going to happen, when exactly you should exit, when exactly you should get back in. I'm not going to do that. All you can do when you're investing, when you're trading, is make sure that you're ready if X, Y, and Z does happen. Again, I always say it. I'm not trying to predict what's going to happen. I try to react to what I'm given. And so if we do get these dips, I know where I'm looking to buy. You know what I mean? I know exactly what I'm looking for. And if you've been here on the channel, I think, maybe that's helped you. Let me know in the comments. Like, let me know if you would like more predictive things like that. But, that's what I'm really looking to do, because that's how I really look to invest and how I look to trade. Now, if you guys want more speculative things, I can give you more like risky things to look at if that's really what you want. But again, I'm not sticking my money there. I like to talk exactly about what I'm doing with my money, when I'm looking to deploy it, when I'm looking to be conservative, etc. So important to understand that as well. Now, ARM is a cheaper name out there, and again, I still like it. Again, this is your previous high range. Again, this was you can see right there. So ARM's trying to break out. And again, this is another one of those names. It had a deal with OpenAI. Back at below 164, that was a tough level to get above. If you lose that, you're probably coming down to 150, maybe down towards 133. The 200 SMA, the red line is 138. Be watching that. But honestly, I don't think you're going to get a dip here. Maybe you do. If you get a dip, it's going to be aggressive. So we'll see. But again, as long as you're above 164, you look really good there. Bigger semis, that's what I'm most interested in. I'm not super interested in Intel. Personally, Goldman Sachs came out and said they're overvalued for what they're at. And I agree. They're not bringing in crazy numbers. You had this massive move on Intel because of a deal and representation that the United States took equity and NVIDIA took equity in them. That's why you got this move. And to me, it's concerning, right? Now, I'm not saying that Intel can't turn around and make a lot of money down the line. I'm not saying that. But you're moving based off of extreme speculation. There's not even it's not that you're getting growth and it's okay, we're going to continue getting great growth. You haven't even developed that growth yet. And to me, that's the concern. That's the real worry here, right? So again, what I'm thinking about there, the cheaper names I've liked Marvel for a while. You get into 93, 94, you're kind of slowing down so far. You're about to get a golden cross here as well. Buy zones 83.5 and your 200 SMA 79, $80 is what I look for there. But golden cross is really bullish. Above 94, you're looking for a push all the way into like 105, 104. Really solid name. A lot of the other names like Micron, LRCX, ASML, they've already moved a lot, so I'm not looking to push the agenda there. That's just me. So if you guys like that, then that might be for you. A lot of you guys also mentioned a lot of smaller caps. I only look at this is my opinion. When you're looking at smaller cap names, especially like in a hot sector like semiconductors, if you go like into AI, you're gonna have a lot of smaller caps in general. There's no big names except like PLTR is one of your biggest AI names. It's killing it right now. Microsoft, I guess, with OpenAI. But when I'm looking at semis, you need to understand I research a lot of these companies pretty in depth. So if I start focusing on them, it's like I don't think they're gonna collapse. Number one, and the risk reward just makes a lot of sense to me. So that's why I liked Marvel. I did my research. I liked it a lot. We talked about it a lot down here, 73, 75. You popped in 94. Awesome. Great trade. So again, just where my head's at, kind of what I'm thinking. So if I don't mention a name you like, it's not that I hate it or anything. It's just like I just haven't done the research. So I don't feel confident enough to put it on my channel and then to have to answer for it down the line. You know what I mean? So that's just how I go about everything I do here on the channel. It's making sure that I can back it up, talk back about it, and tell you what my thoughts were and where everything went wrong. Because again, if you are wrong in a trade and you can't learn something from that, there's probably an issue. And then if you're also winning on a trade and what you did to win isn't a repeatable thing or a repeatable function, I guess, then that's also not a good thing. And I try to make sure everything that we're doing here as far as winning and finding success, it's clear as day, it's repeatable, like 100%. So again, that's the real focus here on the channel. So if you guys have any questions, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Have a good one, traders. I'll see you tomorrow. Subscribe, do what you gotta do.